Hello and welcome to Business Today, your economic and financial news program where we dive into latest trends and issues affecting the Nigerian economy. My name is Omoshiliola Adesoye Ajayi, and today we'll be exploring a topic that is on everybody's mind: inflation and consumer spending. Coping strategies for Nigeria businesses. My guest will be here shortly. Please don't go away. Glad to have you back. As inflation continues to rise in Nigeria, the impact on consumer spending is becoming increasingly evident. Today, we will be looking at how businesses are adapting to this challenging environment and the strategies they are employing to not only to survive but thrive. I have with me in the studio a financial analyst who will help us to understand inflation and its impact on consumer behavior. OLUKAYODE, OYEWOLE, thank you so much for joining us on this program.
Thank you very much. I greet everybody at home.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, let's start by understanding the current inflationary trend in Nigeria. How has inflation evolved, over the years, and what impact is it having on businesses and consumer spending too?
Let me first of all start by telling you, when you talk of inflation presently, it's not only affecting Nigeria, it's a global situation, though the management varies. The way each country or each nation is managing it is quite different. So now come back home, what do we understand by inflation? Inflation is when the cost of living is going higher. Let me bring it down in a simple term for everybody to understand. When the income is not up to the expenditure, or when the expenditure is quite higher than the income. So that's what we call inflation. It is affecting everybody, both as individual, but every sector is affected by this inflation. So what we're presently witnessing in Nigeria is what we call hyperinflation. It's not galloping, it is a speeding. Is going at a very high pace because our purchasing power has dropped, and this is as a result of the fact that we import most of our consumable items. Our local production is poor compared to what we import. I take this example, I give you this example. The dairy we consume in Nigeria is much, so our capacity of production cannot cater for it. So there is need for us to import. So for us to import, for us to meet up with the little we are providing, we are producing in Nigeria, we need to expend more. So we need to spend more to get what we need to make our living very easy. So that's what we call inflation. If I'm to go in a broader way, it might not be somehow understandable to the common man. But in a summary time, inflation is when the income is not up to the expenditure, and when the expenditure is higher than the income. That's what we call inflation.
Okay, like I said, over the years now, the Nigerian economy has been, witnessing inflation, time to time. How did we get here?
Well, it's as a result of our inability to produce more and our inability to diversify to other sectors. Right from the discovery of oil in Oloibiri, we neglected the agriculture sector. Before the discovery of oil in Oloibiri, we were basically living on cocoa from the southwest, granite from the north, and the Igbos, which is the southeast, were already into manufacturing. But upon the discovery of oil, we neglected those sectors and placed all our expenses on oil. Now, gradually, before the coming of oil, we were very much okay with those agricultural items. We have sufficient livestock that were even taken to other countries for consumption. It was then we now remember we need to do what we call Festival of Art and Culture, because we have a lot of money then. And our Nigeria currency was much a bit higher than the foreign currency we are all running after today. So now, upon the discovery of oil in Oloibiri, we rely so much on oil. And let me tell you, people no longer base their expedition and an economy on oil again. If you check outside now, you see vehicles that are now moving without oil. The technology has taken over that sector. So that's why you can charge your cars now like you charge your phone, and it will be functional and give you the maximum output you need. So many sectors that require oil for their performances and functionality no longer rely on it. So the demand for oil is now dropping drastically. So now, time of boom, we did not save. We failed to keep some for a period when it will come like this, like we are experiencing now. So just as we have abandoned that sector, we did not save when we discovered oil. Now that the oil is even gradually leaving the market for technology to take over, we fail to also go into other sectors. America depends on gold to sustain their dollar, to sustain their economy. We have many things in Nigeria. We have gold, we have uranium. Uranium is the material being used for all this. It has taken over oil. It is we use it for nuclear power. So we have it in Nigeria. We have gold. The agricultural sector we neglected is still there, but we don't. No, now we are now borrowing rather than going into those sectors to help the economy. And when we say we are borrowing, we are not even borrowing to help the infrastructure. We are now borrowing to cater for the little political elite. Our population, as estimated in the last population census, was over 150 million. So now the population of that 150 million is now struggling to cater for the little population of political families less than 1 million in population. That's why the number of the SUVs you see on the highway is more than the number of tractors you see in the farm, thus bringing everything down. Okay, now when they say they want to borrow money to cushion the effect of economy, the inflation on the economy, are we borrowing money to make road? Are we borrowing money to build hospital because we have the resources to construct the road, to build the hospital? We have limestone in Nigeria. We have bitumen in Nigeria. So all those things are local content that can be developed to make those things available for consumption. But we are not. So that means the money we've even been borrowing, we are using it to even service the little political class. So those are what has compounded that led to the present state of inflation in Nigeria.
Okay, you mentioned the oil and gas sector now. You also talk about the agriculture. Are these the only sectors that are affected? No. Every sector is affected. Take for instance, there are some sectors that we don't actually dabble into. We have manufacturing sector, and basically these sectors are supposed to carry like 30 to 40% of our economy, and they are to increase our GDP. But unfortunately, we are not going into that. Then how do we make our manufacturing sector viable? We need to also diversify into it fully by proper funding. Okay, take for instance, if I am establishing a firm to manufacture and I don't have constant electricity to power the firm, and we need to go into purchasing of diesel to power the firm, how do I sustain it when a liter of diesel is over 1,000 naira? So those are the reasons why those other sectors is also feeling the impact. I was in a hospital 2 days ago. Imagine, our hospital told me they have a schedule of putting on the light and putting on the light. So between the hours of 1 p.m. to like 6 p.m., they will need to shut off the power, then they can bring it back in the evening. So rather, for them to run that hospital effectively, there will be need to multiply what is collected as a payment from the patient. So every sector is affected. Okay, given all these challenges, what are some of the strategies businesses are employing to cope with the effect of inflation?
Well, most of the manufacturing organizations are now downsizing. They need to lay off some of their workers. so they can be able to meet up with their production. They are also reducing their production content. Take for instance noodles. Initially, before, someone like me will take just one noodle or two and be satisfied. Now, for me to be okay, I need to take like 5 because they are already reducing the content in the paper. It's applicable to every sector like that. And similarly, those who can afford alternative source of power are now going into it, which is a bit more expensive. So for them to meet up, they also need to reduce their labor by generating more funds. So when they lay off some of their workers, they have more money to manage the power that they need to make their production growing.
And now let's now talk about innovations and diversification. Are businesses in Nigeria looking at this direction, you know, as a way of generating revenue? Do you see them looking towards this direction?
You see, the problem is when our people are campaigning, they come to sweet talk us, and when they get to power, they start expediting what they have in their mind. When you talk of economy, it should be something that we favor everybody from top to bottom. Now, this diversification we are talking about can only be propelled by governments, if the government is propelling it. But as it stands today, our budget is still on oil. And that's why we hear the benchmark for this annual budget is so. We are expecting so amount from this, so amount from that. Importation. And unfortunately, Nigeria is not even having the adequate information about the content crude taken away from this country. We don't have knowledge about it. We just know we are selling crude oil and getting the money. Okay, fine. In an instance when we are supposed to spend more to generate power to help the manufacturing sector, and we decide to use the money to renovate National Assembly, how do we cushion the effect on the manufacturing agents, organizations? So if we will manage this effectively, the government will lead by example by bringing down the cost of running governance. First of all, we need to make political offices less attractive. Let the National Assembly be placed on a part-time activity. We don't fix them on salary for the duration of their 4 years. Give them sitting allowances. Then use the money to fix other infrastructures so we can help the manufacturing organizations.
Okay, if you're just joining us, the program is Business Today, and we are looking at inflation and consumer spending, coping strategies for Nigeria businesses. And my guest has been OLUKAYODE, a financial analyst. We take a short break now. When we come back, the program continues. Please don't go away. Glad to have you back. Like I said, we are looking at inflation and consumer spending strategies, coping strategies for Nigerian businesses. And my guest has been a financial analyst, Kayode. Okay, let's now talk about, you've talked about challenges facing businesses in Nigeria as regards after the aftermath of inflation. So let's now talk about digital transformation. This is the in thing now. So how significant is the role of technology in helping businesses, coping with inflation?
Well, now we are at a point where we don't need to rely on oil to power most of our gadgets again. Like in some of the companies overseas that we rely on their product to run our economy in Nigeria, they now depend on other sources of power, number one. Number two, when it comes to the aspect of a digital economy, you will agree with me, immediately after COVID, that most of our people venture into ICT, they are generating more money to finance the economy. People now make it more on YouTube and other social economies, social medias. So that is another way. Initially, most things that we can do are by analog form, we can now transcend them into digital form. So it has helped a lot. It has also helped us to boost the economy to some extent, though there are still limitations because it's the digital economy sector is not funded as expected. So the output is still very low. However, the little we are getting from there is taking like a 15 to 18% cushioning and help of the economy.
Okay, as we look into the future, what should businesses keep in mind? I'm talking about business owners now. What should they keep in mind as they navigate the ongoing challenges of inflation?
Keeping in mind how you can improve your productivity, less depending on the government. Take for instance, look outside, go into innovations that will help you, and if we can as well do this, the government will have little or no challenges of them supporting manufacturing and production. And we need to go back to farm. It's time for everybody to go back to farm, which I believe if the government is able to manage the security, many of us will still go back to farm. Insecurity is why so many people have not been going to farm, the fear of unknown, the fear of being kidnapped. So if we go back to farm, we will be able to increase our production. Then we will support the sector that we solely dependent on to move the economy forward. Like I've said initially, before the discovery of oil, we were living based on what we get from cocoa. The cocoa is what we used to build the cocoa house at Ibadan, and that's what we have used to develop most of our western states. The groundnut and livestock from the north is what have been used to also cushion the federal engagement in economy, while the manufacturing from the east then has also helped a lot. So if we're able to go back to this, that is going back to the indices, going back to the basis, then we'll get it right. But our solely depending on oil, we still not get it. Like I've said, oil is gradually being phased out. Vehicles that are now running with oil and petroleum PMS are in the market. We have hybrids. So the price of even the crude oil we're talking about keep dropping each time because there is crisis in economy in the whole world. So we need to look outside depending on a mono sector to raise our economy.
Are you recommending this as a long-term strategy?
Yeah, that's a long-term strategy. Why another, let me say, the immediate strategy we can employ now is cutting the cost of governance. Today we need to procure more jets, we need to buy yachts, our senators need Jeep. Those ones will not help our economy to keep crumbling the economy, bringing it down. And like I've said, the number of SUVs on our highway is more than the number of tractors in our farms. Besides, we can give incentives to the farmer because now cost of farming is not that easy. You need labor. We need to go into mechanization. Who again want to go into tilling? It's not easy. Those days when people were predominantly farmers, the level of education was a bit lower. Now that most families have produced 3, 4, 5 graduates, it will only be convenient for them if we make provision of mechanization farming available to them. If we cannot do that, we are still deceiving ourselves. So those are the things we can do to help the economy.
Presently, protests are going on across the country as we get as a fall back from the bad economy. So what would be your reaction to this? Recently, the president addressed the nation, but people were saying the president has not come out to talk about the what is really happening. What would be your take on this?
Well, we need to be mindful of what we say about it, but protest is our right. It is entrenched in the Constitution. It's what we can, but though there's no way you protest in a Western world like we are, that it will not lead to violence. And once that is done, the little infrastructure we have, we are also damaging it ourselves. Let me tell us, we can protest to tell governor this is not right, this is the way things should be done. In democracy, the will of the people must prevail. The people who have actually voted for you to be in power are saying, we want this. You are saying, I will not give you this because of your future. Only the people that are alive will see that future. Yes, I agreed. There is nowhere in the world where subsidy is removed totally. Yes, we might remove subsidy from oil, then subsidize in other sector. Like during some of the previous administration, cost of importing mechanized material was actually removed. So if you are bringing in tractor and land moving equipment through our borders or through our ports, you are paying little or no fee. So to bring those items in, those are the areas where government can come in. The subsidization we are talking about is being perpetrated by the elites, which we can classify as a fraud on the economy. However, it's as a result that the present administration, how fully prepared are they before coming to take over, before coming on board to manage the economy? I wouldn't go too far, like I said, but I only appeal to our people. Once our grievances is made known to the government, let's go back home and see the way we can help the economy from our various domiciles. But damaging our public property will not revive the economy. At the end of the day, you know, our politicians, they will still come out to tell you where the little money I need to spend on this project now, I will need it to rehabilitate what you have damaged during your protest. So let's apply wisdom when we are protesting, but it is our right to protest.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, as we wrap up the program, what would be your final advice? What would be the final advice you give to business owners who are grappling with inflation?
Well, business owners should please see the way they can diversify and go into inner depth of how they can run their own personal economy effectively without depending so much on government, because the government you are depending on is also depending on you to generate money to